CR 1/8, CR 30. Oh, hello. Coffee first. To me, those CR 1/8 kobolds and the CR 30 Tarask are the same thing. 5th edition's CR system is a hot mess of garbage. It's broken. But rather than just complaining about it being broken, I want to walk you through a few steps that you might be able to do. Well, you'll certainly be able to do them. And in turn, it might help you create a little bit better encounters, more balanced encounters, whatever better means for you. But we need to fix some things because it's broken. Let's go back to this little Kobold Tarask example. Let's assume you've got 4 level 20 Rangers. Why all 4 of your party members decided to make Ranger doesn't matter, but you ran them through 3 years of campaign, and they're badass Rangers at this point. They've joined the Guild of Rangers. They were gifted for their actions over many, many years. They were gifted with magic longbows. They've got all sorts of various factions and NPCs that they can talk with at their disposal. They have resources. You have 4 level 20 Rangers with magic longbows and all the resources that they need, all the money they need. How many kobolds, how many CR 1/8 kobolds would you put against your level 20 Rangers to challenge them? You probably wouldn't, right? I mean, your Rangers could probably take out an army at that point. So often what's going to happen with a CR 1/8 challenge like this is you're just going to say, hey guys, there's like 70 kobolds that come out of the caves, and I know they have pack tactics and all this craziness, but you guys are level 20. So it's a foregone conclusion that you're going to win. We're not going to bog down gameplay with an hour of you fighting these guys. Let's just say you've won and you've retrieved what you needed to retrieve from the caves, and the kobolds could do nothing about it. CR 1/8 makes sense. Your PCs are way over leveled for them. Well, guess what? I'm also going to say that these 4 level 20 Rangers have defeated the Tarask. It's a foregone conclusion. It's an easy battle. We don't even need to role play it out. ROLL, play it out. Why? Well, I want to show you and illustrate how screwed up the CR system is. You need to take into account what the monster is fighting against. Who are the players? Who are the characters in your party? Okay? We've got our 4 Rangers. They've got magic longbows, and they have NPCs and resources that they can go to. So what they do is, storyline-wise, you tell the players that the king approaches you and he says, the giant Tarask has unburrowed the legendary beast, and he is causing havoc, destruction, and chaos across the countryside. He's ruining our nation. Go out there and kill this thing before he gets to the castle. And the 4 Rangers, your characters say, cool, we've got our magic longbows. Let's go talk to the alchemist buddy that's been our friend for 10 years. Hey, alchemist, can you give us some potions of flying? He says, sure. That's the sound of making flying potions. And he hands you the flying potions. So your 4 PCs now have magic longbows and flying potions. A flying potion does what? It allows you to fly for like an hour. Let's take a look at the Tarask, CR 30. This is the back of the book. There is no higher official CR in the game. This should be endgame stuff, right? But notice how trivial this encounter will be. Cool, high armor class, tons of hit points. A speed of 40 feet. It can't fly, can't jump, nothing like that. Awesome stats, really good saving throws. It is immune to fire and poison and attacks from non-magical. Not an issue because our Rangers have magic longbows. It's immune to a bunch of conditions. You're not really going to be stealthy and roguish and visible next to it because it has blind sight. Legendary resistance, magic resistance, and reflective carapace all apply to spells. Our 4 Rangers are not going to be slinging any spells. Okay? Actions. It has a bite attack. It can attack 5 times, but notice this thing's reach is 10 feet. Has a claw attack, reach of 15 feet. Horns 10 feet, and a tail of 20 feet. All of those are melee-esque. Yes, it's a gigantic thing. It says here, 50 feet tall, 70 feet long. Awesome. But even if it rears up on its hind legs, like a Great Dane or a large breed dog putting its paws on your shoulder. 70 feet long. It's got, it's only going to reach so far, right? Frightful presence. It's a scary thing. If you're within 120 feet, you got to make this saving throw. Its swallow attack or ability, that only comes on board when it bites you, which needs to be within 10 feet. It has a bunch of legendary actions, right? This is a legendary monster, which means it can do things off turn, at the end of your turn. Well, what can it do? Again, those melee-y things. It can move, great. It moves 40 feet, but it doesn't fly, it doesn't climb. And then it can use the chomp attack, which plays into this ability here. So, let's take a look at a longbow. Range, insane range, out to 600 feet, but you're getting disadvantage. If I stay, let's say 140 feet, the sweet spot. I'm rolling normal, no disadvantage. It's well within range of my longbow. I have a magic longbow, so I'm bypassing this damage immunity. And I drink my potion of flying. When you drink this potion, you gain a flying speed equal to your walking speed for 1 hour, and you can hover. If you're in the air, okay, whatever, right? For 1 hour. Flying speed. Your walking speed, rangers, right? 35 feet. Forget about subclasses and all the other magic items you might have. You drink your potion of flying. I understand it's very rare, but come on. These guys are level 20, right? They might have a cloak or something that allows them to fly. The wizard casts fly on them or something. So your rangers are up here in the sky flying at 140 feet, just shooting. Yes, it's going to take a while to get through this, and they're going to miss a few times here and there. And the Tarrasque is going to just completely decimate everything on the countryside, but it only has an int of 3. It's not going to reburrow. Right? Maybe it will. I don't know. But the point is, this poses 0, not minimal, 0 threat to the Rangers. You kill a Tarrasque, it becomes a kobold fight at that point. Why roll? At some point, round 1, the PCs say we're going to fly in. We see it, obviously, right? We follow the path of destruction, and we fly in from like 600 feet. We have our bows, and we're just flying in Quidditch style, get off our brooms, and there it is, the Tarrasque. And we fly in, and like, fine, with disadvantage, from like 400 feet away, I take the first shot, see what happens. Just want to get an idea. But they're level 20. Right? There's been some legend and some lore and some resources in play of like, be careful with magic spells and it might be able to rebound spells. Okay, fine. And you need magic to attack it. Otherwise you can't break through its carapace and blah, blah, blah. And it's scary and frightful. Okay, 400 feet. We try and establish some rules here. Very quickly, within a round or two, the PCs realize, look at the thing. It's got a tail and claws and a bite and horns and all this other stuff. Stay away from it. Don't get hit by it. So let's just stay up here for an hour. At some point, the combat becomes trivial. It doesn't matter anymore. The Tarrasque can't do anything. So is this really a CR 30? Should it have been a CR 20? See, but against a different group at the highest level, a bunch of fighters that, paladins that need to get in there with a weapon and smite and all this stuff, all of a sudden the Tarrasque is a problem. A bunch of wizards. It's got magic resistance, legendary resistance. You're rolling, it's either going to resist all of your spells, AE stuff, or if you're targeting it with like a range attack roll, it might rebound and shoot back at. You get it. So the point is, what I'm trying to illustrate here is you need to read through the stat block and figure out why is it that CR. And if you want to use that actual CR and say this thing truly is the CR that's listed, you need to consider some things. So let me point you in the direction of a couple of starting points of how I kind of work through this. I understand this little chart that's in Chapter 2 of Xanathar's Guide. It's called Encounter Building. Read through all of that. I'm not going to go over it here. You also want to read through and understand this basic point, which is in the introduction section of the Monster Manual. It's called Challenge. This sentence right here is everything. This is the foundation of where to begin when you start dealing with Monster CR. A party of 4 third-level characters should find a monster with a challenge rating of 3 to be a worthy challenge, but not a deadly one. So the baseline for CR and figuring out How do I know what monster to put against my group? How do I know if it's going to be too easy, too hard? The baseline starts assuming that you have 4 party members. If you have 4 level 1s, a CR1 monster should be a challenging but perhaps not deadly encounter for them. If you have 4 level 11s, a CR11 is a challenging but not deadly encounter. Where everything gets all out of sorts is what happens when you don't have 4 party members. What happens when you have 8 party members, as is my case. In Eberron right now, as of last session, I've always had 8 players, but I have 8 characters in my party, and they're all level 5. If I had 4, I could say a CR5 monster is a good starting point to challenge those 4 level 5s, right? But I have 8 level 5s. So does that mean that I should have them fight 2 CR5 monsters? Or, since there's double the party members as what's recommended, should I double the CR and have them fight a CR10? It's not that easy and not that elegant. So you want to work through this Chapter 2 Encounter Building section in Xanathar's Guide. It will kind of help you figure out where to start, depending on how many characters you have in your party. And especially, it gets really weird if you have characters at different levels. And, when do you double the amount of monsters, or when do you just increase CRs and put them against more powerful things? And then you want to look through what the Monster Manual suggests, which is Chapter 3 of the DMG, which takes you through this Creating Adventures section, which is creating a combat encounter. And this helps you to create an encounter depending on what sort of difficulty you want. Do you want it to be easy? You guarantee that they're going to win, but you still want to kind of role play out some things? Or do you want to be, potentially TPKing the party at that point? So you need to wrangle through the information in the Monster Manual, the information in the DMG, and the information in Dungeon Master's Tools. Just look in each of those respective books where you're starting to deal with creating encounters and CRs and building challenges. But once you have that, as already illustrated with the Tarrasque, there's another step you need to go through. Because the CR system, even when it gives you, go across the charts, boom, there it is. I want a CR9. Not all CR9s are created equal. I want to show you this guy, the Kamadan, and show you how I might use this as a guideline. And you'll notice how not only should the CR system be a guideline, everything, and this is not just 5th edition D&D, in all of D&D, everything that's been written, every official rule, doesn't matter who designed it. Take it all with a grain of salt. Take it all as just a guideline. Take everything you read in official books, twist it, squeeze it. Take it as a lump of unshaped clay and just dump that onto your table, and then you and your players together shape that clay into the work of art that you want it to be. That's a cool little analogy or metaphor there. So let's just assume I'm only running 4 characters in my campaign, and I want to have them, they're in the jungles and they want to fight this Kamadan. Yes, the first thing you'll need to do is figure out terrains, right? Like, what are some appropriate monsters? If you know that this is a undead infested area, start looking through the undead. Figure out, right? But now you've determined that. I know in the jungle I want them to fight some sort of weird jaguar cat creature thing. This guy sounds cool, but is the CR4 appropriate? According to just the default little baseline rules, I've got 4 level 4s in my party. CR4 is appropriate. But is it? Let's see. It depends on what those level 4 characters are. And depending on the outcome of that and how you wrangle through that, this thing might actually be equivalent to a CR3. It might be equivalent to a CR5. It may not be anything close to this number. So let's see why this is a CR4, okay? And this is what you have to do. You have to take every monster and invest the time and energy into, when you create your encounters, read through the stat blocks. See what it is the monster offers and can do. This is a large monstrosity, has an AC of 13. Well, you know what? Our kobold has an AC of 12, and that's a CR 1/8. So this thing is definitely not a CR4, significantly more powerful than a kobold, because it has a high AC. So we already know it's not because it's difficult to hit. Yes, it has a ton of hit points, but it's kind of boring if it's just a meat shield, right? There's got to be more to it than that. It can't fly, doesn't do anything really weird. It just moves at 30 feet. I leave the stats alone. Don't mess with this whole thing on any CR monster. It's got really good perception and really good stealth. So that's to say that you're going to have a hard time sneaking up on it. And it's probably going to sneak up on you. It has a good chance of. So it may have a surprise round. That might lean a little bit into what makes this thing truly an appropriate CR. Keen smell. Advantage on wisdom perception checks that rely on smell. Okay, once again, surprise round stuff. You're going to have a hard time sneaking up on it. Pounce. If the Kamadan moves at least 20 feet straight towards a creature and hits it with a claw attack on the same turn, that target must succeed on a DC 13 strength saving throw, otherwise they're knocked prone. If they are knocked prone, this thing can now make 2 attacks, 1 bite, 1 snake. That's a big deal. That's very different than what a CR 1/4, 1/8 kobold may offer. We have this pounce thing. Let's look at that and let's kind of lock that into place. Actions. It makes 2 attacks. That's a big deal, but a lot of things at this CR. CR 1, 2, 3s can oftentimes make multiple attacks. Okay? 2 attacks. Bite, no big deal. Not very high to hit, no reach, and it only deals D6 plus 3 piercing damage. Not a big deal against your level 4 fighters. Okay? With full plate armor or, heavy armor or something like this. Claw, no big deal. Snakes. Piercing damage, just the same, but if you get bit by the snakes, you now need to make a DC 12 con saving throw. Otherwise, 66 is a lot of damage. That's a lot of damage for a CR4. And remember, that leans into the pounce thing. If it pounces on you and it does knock you prone, you fail that strength save, it can now make 2 bonus action attacks, one of them being the snakes, which puts this 66 on board once again. Big deal there. It has this sleep breath, really good. Can definitely make folks unconscious, which is a big deal depending on who fails that, of course. But it's going to do it once per battle at the start, right? That's a big deal. But I really want to lean into these, the snakes and the pounce. Now you need to take those things and figure out this is what made it a CR4 versus a CR1. Because it has these things that can be really devastating. 66 is enough to say this thing should never be a CR1. But now what you need to do is you need to compare and contrast that and relate that to the members of your party to see if this CR4 is truly accurate. Because is this 66 poison damage truly accurate? Like, is it that devastating? If you're going against a bunch of dwarves, every member of your party is all dwarves, don't they have resistance to poison damage? So maybe if you're going against dwarves, it's maybe not equivalent to a CR4. And what I would do there is I only play with up or down 1. I would say, you know what? All dwarves automatically, since this is one of our lock-in points as to why it's a CR4, the snakes and the pounce, all dwarves, I'm considering making this thing actually a CR3. Which, as you work through the Xanathars, DMG, and all that stuff, as a CR3 instead of 4, it might tell me that I actually want 2 of these guys. See how that's starting to work? Also, if I'm dealing with fighters, folk with real high strength saving throws, they're probably not going to be knocked prone. And if they don't get knocked prone, it's not going to make the snake attack as a bonus action. So now, not only are they dwarves, where when it does make the snake attack, if they fail the con saving throw, which they're probably pretty good at, they're only going to be taking half of the damage that's indicated. And then it's never really going to bring its pounce ability on board because they have really high strength saving throws, so they're going to make this save. Or they're going to restrict its movement so that it doesn't meet this prerequisite. The snakes lose their lethality. So if those are the 2 big reasons what made it CR4, maybe I need to consider CR3. But on the flip side, if I'm dealing with a bunch of casters that have a really poor strength saving throw, it's going to knock them prone a lot. If I'm dealing with an environment that's wide open, where it can move 20 feet in a straight line, pounce may come on board a lot. If they're not dwarves, this is all to say that it's going to attack you. It's going to move quickly and efficiently. It's going to use pounce every round. You're probably going to fail the strength save and be knocked prone. Which, remember, when you're prone in melee, I'm getting advantage. It's probably going to use its bonus action, bite, and snakes every round. And when I roll, you're probably going to fail the con saving throw every round. You're going to start taking a ton of damage. And in that case, I'm going to say this guy's not CR4, he's probably CR5. Where initially I thought, I'm going to run 2 of these guys, now I definitely only want 1. Or now I need to consider, you know what? They're going to take a ton of damage. I need to maybe confine the area a little more. Notice how I'm changing things because of what's written here. But that's the process you need to go through for your stat blocks, is wrangle through every little thing and ask, why is it CR20? Why is it CR4? Why is the Tarask CR30? Because it deals with magic so well. It deals so much damage. But as illustrated in the very beginning, if you stay out of its range, it's not really CR30. If you overcome and restrict its movement and have high strength and high con saving throws, or you deal with poison damage very well, this thing is not that devastating. Yes, the sleep breath is something you have to work through, but you have to figure out what makes it the way it is. It's not because of its AC and it has more hit points than a kobold. That's why it's CR4. Work through every monster, and after that, then you can kind of reverse engineer it and go back through the Xanathars and the DMG and figure out, is that CR really appropriate? Is this really the appropriate CR for my group? Because you will find that as you compare and contrast with what your PCs can do, the strengths and weaknesses of the monsters, and whether or not your PCs can exploit that, you'll quickly find that my very first statement is completely true. 5th edition CR system is bonkers. It's never elegant, it's never right, it's never wrong, and it's never the best fit for each and every table. But hopefully something there in my little rambly guidelines will help you work through how to create some appropriate encounters and how to efficiently kill your players, which is something you should do often. Thanks, everyone. That's all I have. I'll see you guys soon.